Hey everybody, welcome back to Tim Travels. I'm your host Terry. So I'm coming to you from my home. It is the 25th of August. So few people have reached out to me and said, "Hey, are you okay? We haven't heard from you in a while," and that is true. It's been a minute. So I'll get to that right off, and then we're going to talk about some stuff in the trucking industry. That may or may not, change things, change how things are going. But so first things first, I on August 1st, so 24 days ago, I had open heart surgery to replace a defective valve, a defective aortic valve. And this aortic valve was 2 chambers, or bicuspid aortic valve, and it's supposed to be 3 chambers. Now, I've known about this valve being problematic for 40 years. I knew they found it on a physical when I was in the Navy, and it just kind of got monitored, and I didn't pay close attention to it a lot of times when I probably should have. But last year over Memorial Day, I was out riding my bike in Illinois and had an incident where I passed out and I woke up in a ditch. And I didn't pass out while I was actually pedaling. I passed out because I was like, oh man, I feel really bad. I was standing over my bike. So I wasn't in the saddle, but I was standing over my bike. That's the first time it happened. It happened another time while I was also cycling. It never happened. And then I started putting 2 and 2 together, because the first time it happened, I was like, maybe sometimes people overdo it. Sometimes you have a bad day. And, I can't ignore the fact that, well, I'll be 63 next week. But, then I was 61. I can't ignore the fact that I'm in my 60s and maybe I push myself too hard. So anyway, I went to a cardiologist back in June, and I kind of knew going in what she was going to tell me. And true to form, she said, "Hey, my friend, you need a new heart valve." And she's wonderful. So it's been a little bit hard because that was June 18th. She said, one of the things she said to me was, well, she said 2 things. One is, hey, look, if you pass out, you got to go to the emergency room. And the second thing she said was, I really need you to quit doing strenuous stuff if you can. So at that point, I quit doing push-ups, squat thrusts. I quit riding my bike. Because really what I didn't want to do is have an incident where I had a syncope, which is the medical term for passing out. I didn't want to have that and have to go to the emergency room. And I especially didn't want to have that while I was still out on the road. And just for the record, I never had any incidents where I was like, oh, I think I'm going to pass out while I was behind the wheel. It never happened. Because it turns out driving a truck is not as strenuous as riding your bike up a hill in the heat. So, what's my recovery look like? I spent a lot of time, just relaxing. I get tired easily. It's taken me a while to get my wind back. I've had pain, I got like a 10-inch incision in my chest where they broke my sternum open. And of course, when you have open heart surgery, you go on what is called bypass. That's not to be confused with a coronary bypass, which is when somebody says they got a triple bypass. Bypass also means that your heart and lungs are not working and a machine is doing the work for your body while they shut your heart down to do whatever it is they need to do. And then they give it an electric shock and it starts working again. And then, if everything goes right, you wake up in the cardiac intensive care unit, which is exactly what happened to me. I am very fortunate, and I've said this before, health is wealth. I have no comorbidities. I'm not diabetic. I don't have high blood pressure. I have a very healthy heart. I don't have any arterial blockages. What else? I don't smoke. About the only thing that you would say was maybe a problem is that I'm heavier than I should be. But I will also say that in the last year, actually since I took my last physical, I'd already dropped like 25 pounds pre-surgery. Not because I thought I was going to have surgery. It just happened to be that I was doing a job that was a little bit more physically demanding. And, just my eating habits or eating rituals had changed. And I just slowly lost 25 pounds. Now I'm around 35 pounds less than I was last September when I got my physical. And I'm going to try to maintain this weight only because it will help the new valve because what was happening is it was narrowing. It's called stenosis. It will help the new valve not see stenosis as quickly. So anyway, that's what I've been up to. That's what I'm doing. I got an appointment with my cardiac surgeon in 2 days, and I'll find out if I'm allowed to drive and or ride in the front seat of a car because they don't want you getting hit by an airbag. And then if I can drive, and I'm pretty sure he will authorize this, I will then also start what they call cardiac rehab. So up in my game beyond just walking and stair climbing. And I can walk like 5,000-6,000 steps in a day if I feel like it. Some days I just don't feel like it, but it's not because I don't have the strength or the energy. I just don't do that every day. But I still get tired fairly easily. Sometimes I need a nap. So I'm not really ready to go back. Like if I had to go back on the road, it would be, it would have to be things that aren't urgent. So anyway, enough. All right. So enough about that. I have a big text group, and somebody sent me a clip of the Secretary of State Marco Rubio the other day. Tweeted out. Well, I'll read what he tweeted. He said, quote, "Effective immediately, we are pausing all issuance of worker visas for commercial truck drivers." Then he went on to say, quote, "The increasing number of foreign drivers operating large tractor trailer trucks on U.S. roads is endangering American lives and undercutting the livelihoods of American truckers." Now, I'm pretty sure this is directly related to the accident that happened in Florida, where the guy that was here on, got his license out of a Cracker Jack box. Or I think he actually got his license from California, which is one of the offending states, along with Florida, Texas, Illinois. He got his license and he was trying to make a U-turn on the Florida Turnpike at Fort Pierce, Florida. And for those of you keeping score at home, you know that Secretary Rubio used to be Senator Rubio of Florida. And this accident happened in Florida. 3 people were killed because of this driver's negligence. But now we have the question, okay, we're going to quit giving, what he says, we're going to quit giving worker visas for commercial truck drivers. So of course, a debate or like comments kind of ensued in our text group. But one of the things that I said was, it's meaningless because, let's be honest, right? The horse is already out of the barn. I mean, we already have thousands and tens of thousands of people that are here on green cards, worker visas, whatever they are, that are driving trucks. And many of them are untrained or undertrained. And we, anybody that's been in this industry for a few minutes knows who the usual suspects are. But let me say this, I have advocated for going and checking every driver, like having roadside stops where you pull every single driver in. Because a lot of times people are like, oh, well, we need to get these people off the road. And my response to that is, okay, but what do you do about the fact that a lot of people out here don't even have CDLs? Because this industry is an industry where you can make a lot of money by doing things illegally. And we've all read stories about the company that gets shut down, and then 2 days later they have another motor carrier number, and some unscrupulous or uncaring, I guess, shipper is like, yeah, you guys look good to go. Get this load from California to Massachusetts in the next 48 hours. And then it just happens, right? Like nobody asks any questions. And so, we've had this crackdown with people that can't speak adequate English or any English. But what are they doing? They're like, oh, we put drivers out of service. So what? If that truck has another driver and you let that truck leave your weigh station, what do you think that the guy that doesn't speak English is going to wait until his English is good enough before he gets back behind the wheel? No, he's going to get behind the wheel in 50 miles. That's just the reality of it. There's not enough punishment. There's not enough pain being inflicted upon anyone. And forget about whether or not they're an immigrant. There's not enough pain being inflicted on anyone that's violating the rules. And let me give you an example. I deliver sawdust, right? Not lately, but I deliver sawdust. Well, my company has a lot of those lanes because they have insurance, they have drivers that are licensed, they have drivers that have medical cards that are valid, etc., right? But there are other companies that deliver to where I deliver that I know for a fact they don't go by any weigh stations to get to the customer. They're driving these old KWs and Peterbilts, long hoods, long, frames. Some of these guys can't back to save their asses. They certainly, like I had one of these chuckleheads that hit my truck. I was actually on my way getting out of my truck. I was parked. He tried to pull in between my truck and another truck, and he smashed the crap out of a brand new trailer. And by the way, the customers own these trailers. And it just so happened that the guy that runs transportation for the customer was right beside my truck when I was getting out. He just happened to be out there on the lot. And he was like, oh man, he got all animated. And I told him, I said, you know what, dude? He was never going to make that turn because what happened is the catwalk on the front of the truck kicked out because he was making the left-hand turn and he smashed into my trailer. But the thing was, he was never even going to make that turn if that catwalk hadn't been there because he was too tight on the left side. And I don't know if this guy has a valid CDL. I don't know if this guy has a valid medical card. I don't know if that carrier has any insurance because there are all these sketchy backwoods carriers, right? They're no different than the guy that has 3 used piece of crap Volvos and some rented trailers out of Merced, California that you see on the road. It doesn't really matter how they got to where they are. What matters is there are a lot of people out here without valid CDLs, without valid medical cards. They're running 2 or 3 paper logs. And, and the interesting thing about this is Rubio at least knows that freight rates are being driven down by by foreign drivers. But freight rates are also being driven down by people that don't obey the law. And the fact that we still have, in 2025, we still have truckers that are allowed to not have ELDs, and that we have so many ELD companies that you can have the phantom driver, the phantom co-driver, and there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of companies that turn a blind eye to this. So what's the solution? Well, the answer is easy. We need to take the gloves off. And if the government, whether it's the federal government or any state government, is really serious about this problem, they will take the gloves off. And here's how you take the gloves off. You pull everybody into a weigh station. First of all, if anybody passes that weigh station, you have a trooper chase them down and you immediately take that driver into custody. You cuff them and stuff them. And then you call a tow truck to come take that truck, and that truck is impounded. Okay? And that charge against the driver isn't just missing a weigh station. Because when we're pulling everybody in, everybody should know about it, right? That charge will be fleeing authorities. It'll be just like running from the cops. It'll be that kind of charge. Then you pull that truck in and somebody doesn't speak English, guess what? Everybody in that truck gets out of the truck is impounded, the trailer is impounded, the load is impounded, and you and the other 1 or 2 or 3 people that were in that cab get out of the weigh station, go get an Uber, walk down the highway, we don't give a crap. And if the owner of that truck wants it back, it's going to cost them $50,000 plus costs. So it's a $50,000 fine for having a driver that can't speak English, doesn't have a valid CDL, doesn't have a valid medical card, is using more than one set of logs, or there's anything sketchy, right? And, there are a lot of people that were born in the US and that are not foreign, they're not on a green card or a guest worker visa, that are violating these same rules that I'm talking about. And they need to be subject to this just like everybody else. And for those of us who are running one set of logs, doing it right, we have a valid CDL, we have a valid medical card, we have insurance, we do all the things we're supposed to be doing. Eventually, when some of these shippers who have up to this point been like, oh, what do we care? They say they got insurance, they got this. Because let's be honest, right? Probably 99 out of 100 loads get delivered. So, excuse me. So shippers don't care sometimes. They just turn a blind eye to it. We know Amazon has turned a blind eye to unsafe operators. That was detailed in an article in the Wall Street Journal. So what we need to do is say, we're going to put the hurt not just on drivers. We're going to put the hurt on truck owners and shippers. And we'll find out real quick how quickly this industry can get cleaned up. Because I guarantee that if some state impounds a $100,000 load of steaks and parks that trailer on a lot, and the owner of that truck doesn't pay the $50,000 fine plus costs to get that truck back, that reefer runs out of fuel, tough. It sucks to be you. Maybe you, the shipper, should hire, carriers that are not cheating. They're not breaking the law. They're not risking people's lives, and they're not undermining the trucking economy. So if you think that just, taking the gloves off and doing what I suggest is the way to go and the way to really get compliance, because, there's a saying, right? You get more with a excuse me, you get more with a kind word and a gun than you do with a kind word. That's a saying for a reason. All of the things, 1,212 drivers put out of service because they can't speak English. Who gives a crap? You could sit on I-81 in Virginia and in 2 hours see 1,200 trucks. Maybe I'm exaggerating, probably 6 hours. But you know what I'm saying? That's a drop in the bucket. And even though Rubio seems like he gets it, what he's suggesting is not going to change anything. But if we were able to take, say, 20,000 unscrupulous drivers and tractor trailers off the road, that's gonna show up on the bottom line, right? And and then what's also going to happen is shippers are going to go to brokers and be like, hey, you sent somebody that's effed up. They took my load that was worth $100,000 and now it's lost. And I don't have anybody I can go to about it. I'm pissed. My boss is pissed. My customer's pissed. You guys, and the pressure will be exerted in all sorts of places where they've, to this point, been immune from pressure. Because right now, you can run a criminal enterprise in trucking and just pretend like you didn't know what was going on. And that's what's going on in a lot of these companies, and a lot of times the motoring public doesn't really understand the fact that guy that just went by him doing 75 and a 65 and doesn't even know how to use the Jake brake, that guy doesn't even have a license to drive a truck in the United States, or maybe even anywhere. I mean, I've seen accidents where it was obvious to me, and I've encountered people, and we all have, if you've been out here for any length of time, I've encountered people where they had no flipping idea what they were doing. All they knew how to do was put an automatic transmission truck into drive and push down on the accelerator. That's all they knew how to do. And honestly, I don't think going back to manual transmissions everywhere would make a difference, because there were unscrupulous drivers when that's all we had. And it wouldn't surprise me to learn there are unscrupulous drivers who do drive manual transmissions. They just look a little different. So anyway, it's good to be back. I got some other things I want to talk about. There's some big changes coming to diesel exhaust systems and how they operate. And I'll talk about those in the next video. Talk to you soon. Bye.